Hello, everyone, and welcome to this workshop today. My name is Peter O'Neill. I'm hosting it. I'm talking through it. The topic today is my recommended core web analytics setup for e-commerce websites with a big focus on Google Analytics, the current Universal Analytics version, not the new GA4, although my logic should be able to use for any digital analytics tool. Let me share my screen and we can get started with some basic introductions first. Note throughout, one, we are being recorded. Two, if you've got any questions at any point, please do ask questions. I'd like this to be interactive. For questions, ideally in the Q&A section, leave your question there or raise your hand. If you raise your hand, I'll bring you on stage, you can ask your question out loud. Also got the general chat to use as well. While people are still trickling in, we had 118 registrations, which I'm actually pretty happy with. That's nice. Although that's only a vanity metric. I want to see here 20, 30 people, 40 plus ideally, joining the session today. 12's a nice starting point. If you'd like to drop into the general chat, hello, where you're from. It's always nice to see different countries that people are joining from today. As introductions, g'day, my name is Peter. I think most of you probably know who I am already, but as quick introductions, I'm Australian. The g'day part gives that away pretty quickly. I lived in London for 16 years, but I've now been in the Netherlands for nearly 8 months and just bought my house. I signed a contract yesterday, so that was very, very exciting. I've been working in digital analytics for the past 15 years. I launched my own agency, L3 Analytics, back in 2010, merged in 2016 to become Leap 3, sold to IEMA 2018, and exited that last year. I'm also the founder of MeasureCamp. We had MeasureCamp Europe a few weeks back. That was a lot of fun. There's now a MeasureCamp Chesnia coming up. If I'm pronouncing that correctly, the Czech Republic. In early September, a French-speaking MeasureCamp, a virtual one in late September, and I saw notes about a MeasureCamp New Zealand as well, happening in person in September. So that's happening around the world. Unfortunately, I can't get to all of them, and I can't speak French at all myself. Beyond all that, I'm back freelancing, working with data, digital analytics data, any kinds of data, focusing a bit more on the e-commerce side with Google Analytics, hence what I'm sort of talk today, under the banners at HS Orchards. So these workshops, they're actually not quite weekly anymore. I'm trying to, I think maybe twice a month makes more sense. I want to share my ideas more. And I like sharing my ideas, my knowledge, my thoughts, my opinions. Not everyone reads blog posts. This is a different method. I'm not so sure if my ideas would translate that well to a formal course, hence keeping it a bit more informal and allowing anyone to ask questions at any point. I like that approach. I think you learn more both ways, that approach. We should be for about 45 minutes. I'm going to talk for 20 minutes or so. If it's lunchtime, please keep on eating your lunch but ask questions at any point. I want this to be practical, and this one here, it includes at the end of it an audit checklist, which you could spend some time on if you want to and get very practical with it. I thought we'd almost like try auditing the Google merchandise store and see just how bad their GA setup is. But again, ask questions, keep things practical. And the whole point here, I like sharing my knowledge. It's the best way to get feedback, put it out there and get the feedback on it. My consent-free tracking workshop a few weeks ago got a lot of feedback and I learned in the process. And I am a freelancer, so this is partially as well lead generation, of course. If you or any company you're aware of need some help, potentially set up their Google Analytics for an e-commerce website, please get in touch. Happy to chat, give advice, and potentially work with some people. So let's get into things. Note to everyone as well, beyond the Q&A, just repeating, the session is being recorded. You got a Q&A feature on the right-hand side to ask questions. You can, of course, raise your hand as well. I'll bring you on stage and ask the question that way. Also, there's some emojis in the bottom corner where you can applaud a comment or look very quizzical if I speak too fast or get too detailed or it's just confusing what I'm saying. So feel free to use those options. And also the chat, and hello to everyone from around the world, which is great to see. So, a core setup. I keep on using this phrase a bit when I talk about analytics and this idea of a core setup. But where's that come from? When I first went into analytics as a freelancer back 11 years ago now, I was a lot more idealistic than I am now. That's been drummed out of me a little bit. And I believed in perfection. I believed I could create the perfect Google Analytics or any tool, the perfect setup, capturing everything in the most beautiful and elegant way. And from that, I learned my lessons, and it was painful lessons. The approach did fail. I created this instructions document for developers, an early client, which was great, detailed, covered everything. And it was that thick, and they basically ignored it. It was just too much work. So I learned from that. If you try and capture everything, it really slows down the release of data because it's all released in one go and it becomes a 6 to 12 month process, not a 1 month process to 6 weeks as it should be. You're capturing more information, more dev resources required to implement the code, that increases your costs. And let's be honest here, most data is not being used, especially if you've got a very detailed setup. The fine granular details, the edges of it, won't get looked at for months, if ever. So what's the point of doing it in the first place? So my learning from this, focus instead on what I call a core setup. Let's get these insights available immediately. And any insight you include in this core level, and it has to be not even useful. So many things are useful, it has to be used immediately. That's the key test of it. If it's not going to get used today, forget tomorrow. If it's not going to get used today, it doesn't belong in the core setup. So what it might look like, I have different levels here, from basic, core, silver, gold, platinum, old sort of familiar sort of structure. And your basic is just putting your page tags in place. Depressingly, what you'll probably get from a lot of dev agencies who build your website and say, we'll handle analytics, they have the page tag to all pages, tick that box and move on. And that's just not enough. We need more than that. So the core level of focus here is on capturing your macro conversion actions and the critical information on visitors and content. And the whole point today's workshop is to go what that looks like on an e-commerce website. You can go beyond that. Your silver level would be micro conversion actions and directly usable information on visitors and content. I mean, and this stuff here, you should be able to use immediately, but it can wait. Is needed to get the core stuff in place first. Going to gold, you're hitting less critical features, not non-critical, and more interesting information. And platinum hits your nice to know level, all that granular detail, which that's interesting and put to one side. It also includes a lot of the advanced data integrations and data collections. Things be too much work to capture immediately, possibly tied in here. Things that maybe like tying in the current weather when someone visits a website. What was that? Then I'd put down a list a little bit. So that's the concept. And no one's asked any questions about it yet, which I hope makes sense. And let me know if it doesn't, or give me a clap if it does make sense to you, or a thumbs up. But then how do you actually use this sort of approach? And the first place usually that is a workshop with the stakeholders. I mean, it could be you by yourself, involve other stakeholders, and just list out every question you've got, everything that needs to be tagged. and then number this. Number each item 1 to 5, where it does align a bit to this previous list here, where your 1 is what's captured by default. People ask, I wonder how many users we had. Yeah, tick that, go by default. So your number 2's a top priority. And to be honest, you actually want as few 2's as possible. If you're not, to be honest, bringing tears to the eye of the analyst, by making it as hard as possible to like what can be included, what can't be included, and restricting that list of number 2's, the critical items, to as few as possible, you're not trying hard enough. This should be almost bringing out tears in the eyes of the requesters. And you use that list. I mean, the number 2's is what you implement initially. If something will take 5 minutes to implement, and I've got the example later on of the page URL, capturing that, 5 minutes work, yeah, throw that in as well. But initially, just the 2's, get that live, get that being used, and then move to the 3's. To show what that means, more practical example, here's a list of potential data questions for an e-commerce website. A quick breakdown of myself, not exhaustive list, it's a partial list, and the numbers associated with it. Now, my numbers probably won't match your numbers. The ones should be the things you get by default. Accurately or otherwise, different question, but how many visitors, what device they used, what pages were viewed, average time on site, put the page tag on all pages, tick that box. The number 2's, it's got an example here of what's core, tracking transactions, products added to basket, tracking the traffic sources. That's my only 2's in this entire list. I mean, I'd love to know the customer to prospect split. I don't need day 1. Form validation errors in the checkout process. Oh, that's so important. But maybe it's not for day 1. Put that down the list. Search terms they're using, payment methods, all the way on the list. I mean, even beyond that, things like watching product videos, using coupon codes, clicking on homepage banners. You may think it's higher rating than a 3, 4, or 5, but they're definitely not number 2's. They're great to know, potentially immediately useful, but they're not critical information right now. So that's the process. But to go into that, now that's the background sort of way of doing it. Let's get the chase here. What's core information for e-commerce websites? And to me, the only tag that's critical is campaign tracking. It's your page labels, your page name, your page type. It's tracking the product when you look at a product page, tracking add to baskets, and tracking transactions. And that's it. It's as little as that for me is critical. Everything else is a bonus, can wait for the future. Feel free to disagree. But I'm going to go through this. And I was putting this deck together the last few days, and I had 1, 2, 3 slides for each area to go through it in detail. And I went, and like the implementation, what tags you need, what goes in the data layer, GTM, how you configure GA. I mean, that's actually really boring. I don't want to use your time here for this workshop to go through these details in that method. You can read all that in my blog post and list it all out. Instead, a different approach. I mean, let's imagine we're the business owners for a retail website. What is it you absolutely need to know? And that's how you define core tracking. After all, your marketing spend, how much revenue you're making. For the marketing spend, I mean, I sort of say not critical within the digital analytics tool itself. I mean, you need to know it somewhere. I almost call it not critical because for universal analytics, you can't bring it in a good way. AdWords, yeah, that's easy to bring in. Everything else, at least last time I checked, for data upload, it doesn't have it at a great enough level by day to make it useful. Someone's leaving that one out. Revenue, yes, that's critical. So you must capture transactions within your core tracking. And within that, 2 critical aspects. Those transactions you capture must be within 5% of your actual transactions. They'll never match up. But within 5% means you can trust and rely on this data. Always make sure as well that there's no duplicate transactions being captured. That will screw up your data as well. And actually, that discrepancy, I say 5%. If you've got a consent management platform in place, and people don't have to be tracked with analytics, that's the provisions you're giving them, including making a transaction, that means that discrepancy can be bigger than that. But assuming you can capture everyone's transaction IDs in the analytics, 5% discrepancy is our target maximum. Next, business owner. People coming to a website. Well, who are these people? What country are they from? What device they're using? What browser they're using? Operating platform they're using? How did they get here? What did they click on to get to my website? And what did they see the first time they actually got here? Is it their first time, or are they actually already familiar with the website? And did they purchase from me previously? These to me are the key questions I'll be asking about the people visiting the website. And some of it's easy. That number 1, 2, 5, that's all default information. Page tag on all pages, and I know based on the IP address and pretty accurate what country someone is from. The browser, the user agent should tell you what device they're using and what browser they're using. Craig Sullivan did do a post very recently pointing out the issues with tracking tablets and the accuracy of tablet information in GA. So it's not as accurate as it could be or it should be. Broadly correct. First on the website, well, actually that's based on cookies and mobile devices, cookie deletion. That actually isn't as accurate as we think it is. Even the count of users, people visiting your website, definitely won't be accurate. That's that one there, and the page tag on all pages. Then, how did someone access the website? For that, I have to make sure that every campaign is being tracked. I need my Google Search Console integrated, Google AdWords integrated, and every other link comes to the website. Emails, affiliates, social media, display, other paid campaigns on Google, all of that must have campaign tracking in place. That's critical. I also then have to configure the channel groupings within the GA for Universal Analytics. That's critical from the top line breakdown, what channels people are using. The first page someone's on the website, what was their entry point? Really important. I mean, people actually enter on the home page behave differently to if you actually enter on the product page. I want to know that. And so you need 2 things for this. User-friendly page names to actually say, was it a page you've entered on? And you also need the page type being captured as well. So again, those 2 items, they're critical for me. They're part of the core setup to answer that question. This last one, prospect versus customer. It's the most valuable segmentation you could do for an e-commerce website. You may think your overall conversion rate is pretty good at 3.5%. But if you discover your customers convert at 25% and your prospects at 1%, your reaction, your optimization strategy could change immediately. So it is critical. And this is one actually where I'd love to put part of the core setup, but I know it's complicated to actually track and not 100% accurate either. There's a solution. With this deck afterwards, click on the link, and you can look into actually how to do this. But I'll call that one a 3+. Again, feel free to ask questions throughout this. Q&A, general chat, raise your hand. The next question, what's the biggest leakage point? We're talking here retail websites. And every retail website has the same customer funnel going through it. You visit the website, you're shopping on the website. And by shopping, I mean looking to potentially buy a product. The way we infer this is by looking at any e-commerce page. You look at a product list page, a product details page at the basket. If you just look at the home page or the My Account section or the blog or recruitment, not enough. You have to look at any e-commerce page. You look for products, You find a product by viewing a product details page. Fingers crossed, you create a basket, commence checkout, place an order. So I need to know this information and the tracking I need for that. With a website, I get that by default. That's just sessions. These four, shop on website, view product, checkout, place order. That's where I need user-friendly page names. Definitely for these. And then if I've got user-friendly page names in place, I then create a destination goal for each stage. These will become goals. And if you've got goals, you then get goal completions, same as sessions. This funnel becomes easy to get. Create basket, it has to be an event. So I trigger an event, I'm creating a basket, I then do an event goal. And I'm actually going to check out marked twice here, both page names and events. Depends on your checkout process here. If you click on the commence checkout and you go to one of a variety of pages, but they're all labeled commencing with checkout, you're fine. You can go to destination goal. If, however, you can go through to the login registration page and it's not named as part of the checkout process, you need to trigger an event when you commence checkout. Similarly, if you could click on the basket page to commence checkout, but then go to a third-party website, PayPal or Amazon Pay, well then again, in an event triggered when you commence the checkout, your goal then becomes an event goal. End of the day, you've got sessions and you've got 5 goals set up, 1 for each stage, so you can get these key numbers here. I need to know as a business, because that will tell me this process here where the biggest leaky point is to focus on to improve website performance. I want to then know how different groups of people behave on my website. People that come in desktop, mobile, tablets, how do they behave differently in the funnel? Or how many transactions they're making? Are they bouncing? The page views per session? Anything else? In good news, other tracking we explained should cover all of this. All of these goals, the channel groupings, page types, information we come through at this point either by default or through the other tracking we've already discussed. So that's a nice bonus. I do want to know as well how people navigate to the website. I mean, I know how I want them to navigate, but what are they clicking on? What are they actually viewing? And for that, again, I need a good page name information in place. I need unique page names. 1 page name per page on the website. They have to be user-friendly. I have to know where to, what each page name represents within the website intuitively. And that's me as the analyst, the CEO, and the new intern to make sense. And all pages need to be tracked within this process as well. Any virtual pages, if you got a 1-page checkout maybe, and they're just tabs in the process, they all must trigger virtual pages. As a bonus, it's a 5-minute job, record the page URL, useful in a lot of ways. So that's one more thing, one more slide, I forgot this one. Really important, retail website. A retail website's all about products. So which products do people like and buy the most? That's critical to me. And to get that, when you view a product page, I need to capture the product name. When you add a product to basket, I have to get the product name. And actually, if you can add to basket from a product details page, from a quick view option in product list pages, from the basket page itself, maybe your order history, I need to know how you actually did this. And also, of course, when you purchase the product, I want that product name, how many were purchased, what the price point was. And notice I said product name, product name, product name here. That product name must be the same at every single stage. I can't record here, Ghost 13 men's road running shoes at that point, but then Ghost 13 men's road running shoes, size 10, when it's in a basket. Must be the same name. Same transactions. I can't lose the apostrophe at a transaction level. Has to exist at all 3 stages. That's critical. And that's your course setup, explained from a business point of view. I'm going to go through now how you use the information, what's done with it, and then after that, the checklist. So you've got the blog post to read through. The checklist should also go through the details of what tagging you need, what configuration you need. Again, please do ask questions. Does this make sense to you? Is there anything missing from the list you think should be included? Throw it in the Q&A or the chat and let me disagree with you, politely, of course. But while you're writing that down, I mean, that biggest leakage point, I need those number of sessions, number of goal completions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stages. With that, I'll get these 1, 2, 3, 4, kind of 5, but here's the 4 key numbers, just that divided by this. I'll compare these targets, get a percentage difference, pick the biggest number, and that's my focus point. That's where the biggest leakage point is on the website. It's where if I get my attention, I can make the most money. An example, it's not the checkout process, it's not the home page, it's a create basket to commence checkout stage. I'll one of the products which are under or overperforming. And that's where I need those products with the number of product page views and add the baskets, because one divided by the other gives me product page success rate. This number here. That's really useful. If it's above the average, usually around 20% here, promote that product more. Below average, 6.5, below the 20%, that's the one I want to fix in some way. It's got bad photos, price is too high, bad ad copy, bad reviews. And one more reason, I'm sure. Oh yeah, possibly it's out of stock, got low stock availability. Really important one, could drive that. Let's fix this. I also want to then create as well this ugly data picture report, performance diagnostic. And look within that, by these key dimensions, with the key metrics, where the weak areas are. The fact that domestic traffic is converting from the e-commerce to product stage 83%, but only 45% for international traffic. Why is that? And if I could improve this by 50%, not even all the way up, I could make an extra 70 grand every month. And that's worth fixing. And in case you didn't notice, these last 3 options here, I was going around it, had these links appearing. That's a link through the recording where I talk through these 3 reports. So at that point, I mean, given you I've captured the information, the core tracking, use to create core reports, look into the details. You can then refine what information is most needed next. Because if your issue is at this point here, creating basket, commencing checkout, versus your issue being shopping on the website in the view product stage, your business questions, what you need to focus on, what is most critical to tag next to answer those questions, does change. And that becomes in your number 3 level, what you start working on next. So for example, and again, we've got another recording here where I talk through all this. If the issue is people using internal search, I want to know how much internal search is being used. How many results are returned for each internal search term? What the different search terms are. Do people actually interact with the search results page? Do they apply filters, click on a result, change the sort order? What do they do there? Are they exiting or doing a second search? Product list pages instead, that's the barrier. Are they clicking through different product list pages? Also through the product, but what are they doing instead? Are they interacting with the page? Are they applying a filter, sort, change of items? Are they scrolling down the entire list? Looking at the quick view items? What's going on here? If that's the area to focus on to make the most money, here's the questions I've got. Here's the tracking which becomes critical as the next stage as number 3 items. So, still waiting for my first question. Haven't lost that many people. Get into a useful part, hopefully, for you. Here's an audit checklist. And let me just grab this, actually, and drop it into the chat. This is a link to that checklist. It currently contains only Universal Analytics checklist. I'm looking to add in GA4, hopefully in the very near future. This is what we go through. Are you using campaign tracking with each channel? Yes or no? Is there a page tag on all pages? Is a page tag triggered by any virtual pages? For the page field within the page tag, does it have a user-friendly page name or not? Do you record the page type of page URL and content groupings, the product name, product details pages, and customer dimension, and so on? Please open up yourself, grab a copy, and let me know what you think. Any questions you've got about the detail within this? It's got the campaign tracking, Google Analytics tracking, Google Analytics configuration, and then even some data points to check within your Google Analytics setup. Checking each of these will tell you if you've got a tick for everyone, that's great. You've got a great course in place for Google Analytics. If you've got any X's, I think you need better than this to get the reports, the insights I've already talked about. You need to go deeper. I've had a question here from Tristan. How do you check each level in your setup, circles, from the start of your talk? Tristan, can I actually bring you up on stage? Just want to clarify what you mean here. I'm not quite sure what you're referring to. I mean, I know you mean this page much earlier on. Right at the start. Can you raise your hand, Tristan, if you're okay to come up on stage? Do you have tests or checklists for this? I mean, this is where it will actually vary. Right, hand's been raised now. Just turn your camera and microphone on, and you can come and join me up here. Hey, Tristan.
Hey, Peter. I was just interested to whether these levels are relative to a client or whether you have levels or checklists you're checking. Maybe a bit like that spreadsheet you just showed might be around the level 1 circles in here.
Yeah. So yeah, so level 1 you should get by a tag on all pages. That's what I mean by the basic page tags and default information, like getting the number of users, sessions, page views, a page name based on the URL, your bounce rate, new returning, the device, the country. That comes by default. That's my level 1. Because people always ask the things, go, yeah, you can have that definitely. Level 2 is what I've gone through today and what that checklist is. That's my opinion on core level tracking for any retail e-commerce website. That's what I think core is. Different people may differ to that. That's my absolute minimum there requirements. Number 3, 4, and 5 is silver, gold, platinum. That is client specific. And I've got ideas myself what I think we typically more useful, but it also comes down to where the weak parts on your website. So if your checkout process is really bad, your level 3 will be different to whether your people are entering the homepage and bouncing immediately, or if they're viewing products and not creating baskets. So 3, 4, and 5 should depend on where your biggest problems are. Capture that information next, focus on that, and then build from there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand. So they're slightly adaptive and then based on the client's needs and what their features are. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's like the classic one of the capturing the weather. Someone's weather at the point in time you're on your website. Typically useless, but for some websites, it might become absolutely critical if it's a very big correlation. If you've said to your CEO going, the reason we have less traffic or sales last weekend, which was the weather. And the CEO laughs and says, you tell me that's bullshit again, I'm going to fire you. Getting the weather into your analytics becomes critically important at that point in time to be able to prove what you're saying to keep your job. So it does vary that way. Good question. And now I need to click through everything. I mean, that's it for a minute. Actually, screen. Instead, I'm going to share that checklist. So everything I've got in this list here should relate back to the different items that we went through in my deck. If there's anything in this list you're surprised by, given what I talked about, or anything I've mentioned on the list, please raise your hand, put it in the chat or the Q&A now, and challenge me. Feel free to challenge me on this. But these are the tags I need. I mean, it's quite simple. The page tag on all pages, real pages and virtual pages. The page name is really important, plus the page type, the URL. That product name, when you view a product page, when you add to basket, the transaction information. This configuration links to be straightforward for any website. This one here, there's the goals I talked about. Configure your content groupings, custom dimensions, and check it out as well. I mean, here's what you can check. Is your GA transaction data correct? Are there any duplicate transactions? Is the other channel grouping should be below 1%, should be actually 0%. If it's more than 1%, improve your channel groupings. Check your referral data to see if any other campaigns are not being tracked, and make sure those product names are consistent. Julia's made a good point there. You need to enable Google Signals. And I'll put that in this one here. Really good point, Julia. That allows us to get the, this is more for the age and the gender. I'm trying to think if there's anything else on the list. I wouldn't call it critical, to be honest, Julia. I think having the age and the gender is really useful, really nice to have, but not critical. Google Signals obviously allows you to do retargeting and a whole lot of other information, so it could be quite useful for other reasons. As to whether it's core tracking, I wouldn't have it in there as core tracking. I'd have it as really useful tracking. What do you think? Do you agree or disagree with that? There are comments, raise your hand, Q&A, chat. If you agree or disagree on Google Signals. No more comment there. And I'm still getting the point here, there's no questions. Is anyone looking to try this checklist for their website or their client's website? Anyone's going through and go, actually, we actually don't have this in place. We actually meet as items. Any feedback immediately? How long would you assign internally to check and action the checklist? Well, this checklist, to be honest, you should get through this within half an hour, if not 15 minutes, going through it quickly. It shouldn't take long at all. To actually action the checklist, that could take, depending on developers, a few weeks. I've tried to make it as lean as possible. That's the key point here. I include as little as possible in this list. Page names may take longer to actually do than anything else. Other than that, it should be actually pretty quick to add this information. It should be capturing transactions. If you're triggering a transaction discrepancy, that may take more work to do. Page names can take more work to do. apart from that, it should be fairly quick. You'd like to think it was in place, particularly on the GTM. The important aspect though is if you don't have it, and I've talked to prospects previously who you could not create a funnel for. That's not good enough. That you should be trying to do ASAP. Cool. A couple of thank yous. Does anyone want to try and use this checklist against the Google Merchandise Store, the one with the demo account? Please put your thumbs up if you'd like me to do so. No, you're okay? I mean, in that case, if there's no questions, I will let you all go. I will say have a great day to all of you. I hope it goes well. Have a great weekend. The next workshop is actually predefined. I'm talking to the quantification of web analytics, focusing a bit on GA4 with that. The quantification, there's an old blog post for it. It's basically about different levels of report analysis and the tools you need for this. So I find very interesting. I refer back to a lot. Hope it's interesting for other people as well. So have a great day, evening, weekend, and see you all in 2 weeks' time on the 6th of August. Bye.